After abandoning our identities to lead a life as an ordinary couple, both Huyen and I found ourselves filled with regret. Thus, in this new life, we instinctively evaded every opportunity that we could have encountered in our previous existence. Upon our next meeting, he had transformed into a victorious general, returning to the capital in a splendid triumph. By chance, we encountered a wedding procession, and he inquired, "Whose wedding is being celebrated today?" Others responded, "The Pei family." "Is it Miss Peier? Why is the eldest sister, Pei Wan, not here to see her off?" Pei Wan is the bride. 1. Upon learning that Huyen did not attend the flower viewing banquet at the Xiang residence, I understood that he, too, had been reborn. In my previous life, as the daughter of a minor official, I was relegated to the most remote corner. When others mocked and ridiculed me, it was he who fortuitously intervened on my behalf, marking the beginning of our fateful entanglement. The reason I describe it as a fateful bond is likely due to the fact that our mutual affection blossomed despite familial opposition. One night, he climbed through my window, took my hand, and declared, "Awan, I shall no longer be a general, and you shall not remain a lady of high standing. Let us escape together to find a paradise beyond this world, where we can be together forever." I was profoundly moved, hastily packed my belongings, and feigned my death to flee Nanjing with him. At that time, we were both too young to comprehend that leaving behind a life of luxury would lead us into endless hardship. The land we needed to cultivate was unforgivingly tough, and the young master, unaccustomed to toil, was left with blistered hands. The coarse hemp garments chafed against my skin, as I, having never engaged in hard labor, developed rashes. Initially, we were able to numb ourselves with love, seeking warmth in each other's embrace, though he expressed guilt. "Awan, it is my inadequacy that has prevented you from living well." The young master of the Hur family had always been proud. He believed that without his family, he could still carve out a successful career. Thus, when we decided to elope, he brought nothing but the clothes on his back. I had brought some valuables, but after purchasing a residence, they were all but gone. I shook my head and smiled, saying my husband can grow crops, and I can earn money through embroidery. We have hands and feet. As long as I am with you, Awan does not feel wronged. Yet, as time passed, news arrived of her family's second young master returning in triumph, having been granted the title of General Anwu. Huyen fell silent as he fertilized the crops with cow dung. That night, he sat by the window for the entire evening while I slept. He must have realized that the Hu family had intended for him to lead this battle. His demeanor towards me grew markedly colder, and he began to frequently distract himself, often inquiring about the second young master of the Hu family. It was said that he had gained fame in battle, earning the favor of the emperor. And not only was he destined for a successful career, but even a princess was to be betrothed to him. He was indeed basking in glory. He seemed lost in thought, even forgetting our agreement from the previous night that he would return early today to take me to see a doctor. During our time on the run, we had become impoverished, and I was reluctant to spend our hard-earned savings on a single doctor's visit. Thus, I had said, "It's merely a slight discomfort. It's nothing." However, Huyen was surprisingly resolute. "It's just a visit to the doctor. I told you before. Even after leaving the general's estate, I, Huyen, can still provide for you." He appeared determined to prove something, perhaps inspired by the tales of the second young master of Hua, who had gained fame and fortune. I opened my mouth, gazing at this familiar yet somewhat unfamiliar face, and ultimately nodded. "I will wait for you to return, my husband." The snow fell heavily that winter, and the thin winter garments were rendered ineffective against the piercing cold. Huyen did not return. Too, I ventured out into the thick snow, enduring dizziness and weakness, to find him at a tavern. He was inebriated. Upon seeing me, the tavern owner remarked, "Madam Pei, you have finally arrived. You must settle the bill. We do not extend credit." I glanced at the ledger, astonished. How can it be so expensive? Previously, it would have merely cost me the price of a hairpin, but now, having severed ties with our family, this amounted to all the savings that Huyen and I had accumulated over time. Expensive? The tavern owner scoffed. "If it's so costly, why bother drinking? And who do you think you are, claiming to be the brother of Huolin? Have you lost your mind? What a pitiful sight. What are you worth?" I was rendered speechless. Yet, Huyen abruptly stood, slamming the owner against a pillar. Do you look down on me? Do you even dare to belittle me? I am indeed Hualin's brother. Who allowed you to speak to her like that? She is my woman. Apologize. Why you are causing a scene? The tavern owner stammered in fright. I quietly urged, Huayan, let it go. Huayan remained silent, delivering a punch to the tavern owner's face, then a second. And a third.
Huayan.
I could no longer endure it. At that moment, the tavern owner, unable to withstand any longer, cried, I was wrong. Huayan halted his fists. Fine, I was wrong. Just let me go. I promise I won't do it again. He insisted, I am Hualin's brother. The tavern owner nodded vigorously. You are indeed Hualin's brother, yes. He released his hold, and the tavern owner collapsed to the ground, terrified, and crawled away. Huayan's figure swayed. I stepped forward to support him. Huayan, let us go home. Yet, in the next moment, he violently pushed me away. I stumbled against the nearby table and chairs, feeling pain shoot through me, my vision darkening. Yet, I could hear Huayan's voice, reeking of alcohol. Why? Why should it be me? I am the one who should have achieved fame in battle. I am the one destined for success, even he paused, saying, the one who should marry the princess. I stood utterly still, the pain in my body feeling numb. Yet he continued, I regret it.
3.
The following day, when he awoke, he found me bustling about as usual. He shook his head. Awan? Hearing his voice, I paused briefly, turned back with a smile as before. You're awake? The meal will be ready soon. Just a moment. There's some hangover soup on the table. Upon hearing the word soup, Huayan's expression froze, and he suddenly asked anxiously, Did I say anything while drunk yesterday? I maintained a neutral expression. You were too busy sleeping to say anything. He sighed in relief, stepped forward, took my hand, embraced me, and uttered the first words of affection in 3 months. Awan, having you as my wife is truly wonderful. I merely gazed at the mounds of earth in the courtyard, suddenly reminded of my father. He was a modest official, yet renowned in Nanjing for his devotion to my mother, with no concubines in the household. However, only I knew that he kept a beautiful mistress outside, and each time he returned home after visiting her, he would often look at my mother's caring face with a hint of guilt. Consequently, for a while after, he would treat my mother exceptionally well. As for me, I heard his words and could only force a smile in response. I feel the same. For, not at all. Huayan only believed that he was the only one filled with regret. Yet this morning, I overheard my younger sister's wedding preparations. With 2 exquisite jade headpieces, my mother's most treasured creations, being readied for the occasion. They were masterpieces meticulously crafted by artisans, worth a fortune. Even a scrap would suffice for Huayan and me to enjoy a few days of good food and drink. One of those was meant for me. In that moment, I, too, felt regret. Fortunately, it was not too late, for upon awakening, I discovered that both Huayan and I had been reborn, back to the time before our encounter at the flower viewing banquet. This time, he did not come. When my younger sister asked if I wanted to sneak a glance at the male guests, I chose not to go. 5. Throughout the banquet, I remained unusually quiet, exercising utmost caution. Even when those noble ladies mocked and ridiculed me, I refrained from retorting. My younger sister, Pei Shu, remarked in surprise, Sister, why are you behaving differently today? It is worth noting that although I was not one prone to violent outbursts, I would not have tolerated bullying in the past. I simply smiled and replied, It is just a few words. Seeking momentary satisfaction only leads to endless suffering, just as in my previous life. When I left home in a fit of passion for Huayan, I endured considerable hardship. Now, as merely the daughter of a minor official, the most those noble ladies could do was look down upon me and utter a few words. Yet should a conflict arise, a mere pointed finger could lead me into a world of suffering. Moreover, I had long ceased to be the naive Pei Wan of my youth. Having endured hardship and learned from my missteps, I finally understood. A few quarrels are trifling. What I desire is an abundance of wealth and, even more so, a plethora of power. Is that so? My younger sister inquired, her cheeks puffed out in innocent curiosity at the tender age of 14, still naive to the world. Sister, is that not the legendary young master Hue? Not far away, in the archery range, Hui Yan exhibited an undeniable prowess, radiating confidence and charm, captivating numerous noble ladies, including my sister. Alas, her voice was too loud and her status too humble. In the next moment, she was knocked to the ground by Du Qianer, the daughter of a minister, who sneered, "You? Do you even think you are worthy of competing with me? Young Master Hua is not someone you can covet.
Indeed.
Your father is merely a minor official, and there are countless such figures in Jinling. Why do you flaunt yourself here? Truly unworthy of attention. One must possess self-awareness." Unlike Miss Pei, who clearly lacks it, the noble ladies around her mocked. "I do not," my sister stammered, her eyes brimming with tears and confusion. "I did not wish to compete with you." Little did she know, Du Qiano's gaze hardened, and she raised her hand threateningly. "You? Do you dare to address me as Miss?" The force behind her slap was considerable. If it landed, it could very well leave a mark on my sister's face. For an unmarried woman, any blemish on her visage would complicate future marriage prospects immensely. Yet, Du Qianer was accustomed to her tyrannical ways. Perhaps she intended to mar my sister's face. Fortunately, her intent was thwarted as a firm hand grasped her wrist. The anticipated pain did not materialize, and my sister opened her eyes, tears cascading down her cheeks. "Sister." "Miss Du, my sister has acted impolitely, but this is a banquet hosted by the wife of the Prime Minister. It is hardly appropriate for you to lay hands on a guest," I stated with unwavering composure. Du Qiana narrowed her eyes. "Are you threatening me? And who are you really? Your father is a mere minor official, and your mother is nothing more than a merchant. Even if they personally interceded today, they would not be worthy of appearing before the Du family." The commotion drew the attention of others. The male guests murmured, "What is happening? It seems yet another woman is causing a scene over young Master Hua. Which of these young ladies does not gaze at young Master Hua with adoration? But if I am not mistaken, that should be Minister Du's daughter. That young lady has a notoriously bad temper, and crossing her could yield dire consequences. The one beside her, I recognize. Her family background is modest, likely from the Pei family." Upon hearing the mention of the Pei family, Hui Yan stiffened, instinctively turning to look. Yet, he beheld a familiar, upright silhouette. Nearby, voices continued, "Young Master Hua, she is suffering for your sake. Will you not come and intervene? We cannot allow this young girl to suffer undeserved misfortune." I too heard their words. A moment of silence enveloped the air, followed by Hui Yan's emotionless voice. "It is inappropriate for a man to approach the lady section." Yet, I recalled vividly that in my previous life, he had stood before me, defending my honor. In this moment, I could finally ascertain that Hui Yan had also been reborn. This time, he seemed determined to sever past entanglements and embrace a new path. I ought to feel sorrowful. After all, we had once shared a bond akin to that of husband and wife. Yet, I merely sighed in relief. Thankfully, his regret was evident. Henceforth, we would each tread our own paths, free from obligations to one another. I gathered my thoughts and turned my gaze to Du Qianer. If Miss Du feels this way, then Miss Pei has no words to offer, but my sister is off limits. Du Qianer had never been so publicly humiliated, especially not in front of the admired young Master Hua. Her expression twisted with fury as she raised her other hand. "Let us see if you dare to retort." The slap came swiftly, too fast for most to react. Yet, for a martial artist, it was merely a slow-motion affair. Hua Yan instinctively moved forward. But memories of our shared escape in the previous life flashed in his mind, and he hesitated, biting his lip. He stopped himself. I stood my ground, unyielding, staring directly at the descending hand. At that precise moment, a voice interjected. Miss Du Qianer froze mid-motion. A figure emerged from the crowd, exuding warmth and familiarity. Is there some amusement afoot? Why is everyone gathered here? It was none other than the hostess of this flower-viewing banquet, the wife of the Prime Minister. With her arrival, should Du Qianer have struck, it would have been a grave affront. While she could look down upon the Pei family, she could not afford to offend the Prime Minister's household. After all, the Du family's current status was largely bolstered by the Prime Minister's support. With Minister Du having once been a student of the Prime Minister. Before Du Qianer could formulate a retort, I smiled and replied, "Indeed, there is an amusing incident. Miss Du and I have become fast friends, merely jesting." The dispute among the noble ladies was thus lightly brushed aside and deemed playful banter, leaving Du Qian'er unable to counter, only to discreetly withdraw her hand from mine. I maintained my composure and bowed to the Prime Minister's wife. Pei Wan pays her respects to you, madam. She observed everything keenly, casting a profound glance. Ah, so you must be the child of Lord Pei? A fine child indeed. The flower viewing banquet passed without further incident. My sister remained in a daze as she boarded the carriage. On our way back, she happened to see Du Qian'er shyly fidgeting with a handkerchief in front of Huyen. The next moment, she stuffed the handkerchief into his hands and ran away without looking back. Huyen did not evade, yet he did not discard it either. He stood there holding the handkerchief. How could young Master Hu possibly have an interest in such a person? My sister's illusion shattered. She had not forgotten Du Qian'er's earlier attempt to strike her. I simply observed silently, my tone level. Whether he admires her or not is a matter for others to consider. It concerns neither you nor me. Shu. We must focus on our own affairs. My sister had always heeded my words and nodded vigorously. I will listen to you, sister. The spring breeze fluttered the curtains. Huyen turned, catching sight of me. It was peculiar. He appeared guilty as if caught in a transgression, hastily concealing the handkerchief behind his back, seemingly wishing to explain Awan. I did not. What was there to explain? It was clear we had long since become unconnected. I did not listen further and commanded the driver, return to the estate. The curtain fell, leaving Huyen standing there, bewildered and astonished, gazing at the retreating carriage. 3 months passed swiftly, and Huyen was to go to war. In my previous life, we were deeply in love, and to be together, we had both forsaken our identities to live as ordinary spouses. Thus, the candidate for the military became Huyen's younger brother. He had regretted that choice. Hence, it was not surprising that this time he volunteered to serve as a deputy for the younger brother of the Hu family. He departed with great fanfare. Many noble ladies in Jinling secretly bidding him farewell from the taverns. Some whispered that young Master Hu frequently looked back, perhaps searching for someone or awaiting someone. Perhaps among them was the beloved he had long cherished. My sister recounted this amusing tale to me. Sister, since the flower viewing banquet, you have not ventured out. You simply focus on embroidery and reading. Do not stifle yourself. My mother remarked, I wonder which girl is so fortunate. She had never imagined that the girl in question would be one of her own daughters. Conversely, given the vast disparity in our family backgrounds, should it truly be the case, it would not be a blessing but rather a calamity. After all, the Hu family would never permit their son to marry the daughter of a minor official as his legitimate wife. I remained silent. At that moment, a maid entered to announce, the Prime Minister's wife has arrived. High-ranking officials and noble women often come with a purpose, to propose a match. Though it seemed insincere. What if the suitor was a frail widower? That young man is my husband's prize student. He is simply not in good health. He married once, but his wife passed away shortly after entering the household. His family does not wish for him to remain alone, so I thought of Miss Pei. The lady of the Chancellor cast her gaze upon me and remarked, at the flower viewing banquet that day, I observed that Miss Pei took a particular liking.
Yet,
that frail wretch lost not only his first wife upon marriage, but had not even completed the ceremonial vows.
now,
Whispers in Jinling circulate that he is not merely an ailing invalid but also a husband who brings misfortune to his wives. It is said that he seeks to arrange another marriage, but in reality, he is on the brink of death. Perhaps he wishes to find someone to bring him good fortune? My mother, keenly aware of the implications, felt a surge of anger within her. Yet, constrained by the other party's status, she could only respond, Thank you for your kind intentions, madam, but my daughter is still young, and I truly cherish her. I wish to keep her for a year, or 2 more. What do you mean by keeping her? The lady of the Chancellor has spoken. It is a gesture of goodwill and a stroke of fortune for my daughter. My father immediately countered. Upon hearing that the lady of the Chancellor had personally come, his eyes gleamed with excitement. Having reached such a rank, further advancement was unlikely, but if he could align himself with the Chancellor's household, the possibilities would widen. My mother, well aware of her husband's ambitions, turned pale at his response and attempted to intervene. My lord. The lady of the Chancellor merely smiled and glanced at my father, taking a sip of her tea before saying coolly, Why not inquire if Miss Pei herself is willing? At this remark, all eyes turned to me. I simply asked, does the other family possess wealth? They are immensely wealthy, enough to ensure Miss Pei's comfort and security for 10 lifetimes. Do they wield power? In Jinling, every family must give them a measure of respect. She anticipated my next inquiries regarding looks and physique, but I had finished my questions. I then declared, in that case, I am willing to marry. This time, even the lady of the chancellor was taken aback. She had presumed I would at least hesitate, considering it was a matter of a lifetime, and he was, after all, an ailing husband who brought misfortune. Yet I was indifferent. In my previous life, having witnessed my parents' superficiality and unhappiness, I resolved to adopt a different approach. I had chosen to feign death alongside Huiyen and lead a life as an ordinary couple. Yet, even that did not bring me happiness. Thus, I refused to choose once more. Romantic love is but an illusion. It cannot sustain one's existence. What sustains life are wealth and power. Even if he were a dying man, I would still marry him. My final question was, what is the date of the wedding? The lady of the chancellor, pleased to have settled matters so swiftly, replied eagerly, the 8th day of the 8th month. It is an auspicious date. Indeed, that day was truly fortunate. Not only for the wedding but also for Huiyan's triumphant return. He had achieved a great victory, bestowed the title of the ever-victorious general, and returned to the capital in splendid glory. As he beheld the bustling streets, he could only assume someone was celebrating a joyous occasion. His heart could not help but stir. After all, in my previous life, when we feigned death, we left with scant resources, and our wedding was merely marked by a simple red silk ribbon. I had not even worn a bridal gown, only a single red flower. Back then, he had felt immense guilt, saying, just wait a little longer, Awan. Once I establish my career, I will certainly give you a grand wedding. Yet ultimately, he failed to fulfill that promise. He admitted that he regretted it afterward. Having grown accustomed to a life of luxury, he found himself perpetually lamenting his lack of achievement. Thus, when he heard of his younger brother's recent promotion, he succumbed to drunkenness. At that moment, he thought that if given another chance, he would make a different choice. Upon awakening once more to the time before it all unfolded, when he saw me, his immediate instinct was to flee. It should have been simple. We were strangers, completely unrelated. Yet, why did he feel such panic and guilt upon receiving Du Qian'er's handkerchief and glimpsing Pei Wan? Huiyan could not comprehend it, until one day, while he was away at war, one of his subordinates noticed something amiss and asked him a question. He concealed part of his turmoil but expressed his confusion. The subordinate, understanding, casually remarked, "What's the difficulty? Just make that girl your concubine and marry a suitable match as your wife." But how could she be a concubine? Huiyan exclaimed in astonishment, almost instinctively. Why not? A commoner's daughter being a general's concubine is a stroke of fortune. She should be overjoyed and would never be ungrateful. The subordinate replied matter-of-factly. The general possesses such talent. If she truly understands you and harbors affection for you, she would surely be magnanimous enough to support your desires. Huiyan was struck by a realization. Indeed, he still loved Pei Wan. In my previous life, he and Pei Wan had feigned death because his family refused to accept her as his legitimate wife. Now, he was unwilling to relinquish her. Having her as a concubine would suffice. He would not mistreat Pei Wan, for it was merely a title of concubinage. Pei Wan loved him dearly. She would not mind. Having come to this understanding, Yen returned in high spirits. Coincidentally, he encountered a wedding procession and cheerfully inquired, whose wedding is being celebrated today? The Pei family,
came the reply.
Is it the second Miss Pei? Why is the elder sister Pei Wan not here to see her off? Pei Wan is the bride. With a resounding clang, the ever-victorious general of Jinling lost his composure, dropping the sword he held in fury. His face was a mask of rage, and it was unclear who had provoked his ire. Of course, he was not the only one displeased. At that moment, in the Shang's book house, the matron was pointing at Du Qian'er and instructing, "Qian'er, greet your sister-in-law." What nonsense! I refuse to be related to such a person.
Du Qian'er femed.
Stamping her foot before turning to flee. The scene fell silent for a moment, as no one had anticipated the second miss, due to be so willful. Beneath the red veil, I could not discern the expressions of those around me, but my mother-in-law merely laughed awkwardly and said lightly, "Look at this child.
She has been spoiled since childhood.
I suppose she is jealous that her elder brother is marrying, fearing he will no longer favor her." With just a few words, the matter was dismissed. Even I, though not particularly bright, understood that this was my mother-in-law's way of asserting her authority on my first day as a bride. Perhaps it was not just her. My father-in-law remained silent, while my brother-in-law drank merrily at the tavern, even declaring, "A sickly man marrying is ill-fated. I shan't attend." As for my husband, he was akin to a rooster. The eldest son of Duke Du Rollin, was renowned as a child prodigy. If Duke Du was the favored disciple of the old chancellor, then this child was raised under the old chancellor's wing. Alas, fate is cruel. At the age of 10, he suffered an accident that left him ill for years. The palace physicians spoke in riddles, but the consensus was evident. This young master was destined for a short life. Consequently, no one in the family paid him any heed. Even his previous marriage was merely a matter of family pride, resulting in a union with a girl on the verge of death. The second young master, Du, had mockingly remarked, "A frail husband for a frail wife. May they both perish together." Yet, tragically, the girl passed away before the wedding rites were completed. Thus, the eldest son of the Du family became the subject of ridicule. Only the old chancellor and his wife remained concerned, which ultimately led to this marriage arrangement. This was why, when the lady of the chancellor proposed to me, my mother so vehemently opposed it. Although our family is not of high standing, we are not in the business of selling daughters for wealth.
How on?
Why would you agree to this marriage? Once the lady of the chancellor departed, my mother grasped my arm anxiously and questioned. Indeed, my family was prosperous, not due to my father but because of my mother. She was originally the daughter of a wealthy merchant. However, within the hierarchy of society, merchants were at the bottom. As soon as the lady of the chancellor departed, my mother grasped my hands, her voice tinged with urgency. Indeed, my family was prosperous not due to my father. No matter who I marry, I shall be wed. If that is the case, why not marry the one who offers me the greatest advantage? Whether this man is good or not remains a mystery, but his wealth and power are abundantly clear. Although the eldest son of the Du family may be frail and disregarded by his kin, the old prime minister and his wife hold him in high esteem. Just as earlier, after I consented to the marriage proposal, the prime minister's wife personally assured me, saying, "My dear child, do not worry. If you suffer any grievances after marrying, come to me, and I will stand by your side." It is evident that, given my current status, this is the most advantageous marriage I could hope for. Moreover, father has already given his consent, has he not? Mentioning my father caused my mother's expression to stiffen. Her face contorted with rage. For all these years, he has concealed from me his extramarital affairs and fathered an illegitimate child. As long as he does not disturb my peace, I can feign ignorance. Yet I never expected that, after a day of marriage, he would sell my daughter for his own career. My father has maintained a mistress for many years, a truth my mother discovered only too late. This mistress not only has been with him for years, but has also borne him a son. The prospect of divorce is utterly impossible. Not to mention, my father's reputation as a devoted husband would never allow such a scandal to be revealed. My mother would never permit it either. Why should I divorce and leave a vast fortune to that pair of adulterers and their bastard child? They are dreaming. As long as I live, they shall never step foot in this house. Thus, you see, my mother, who prides herself on her ability to manage her husband, remains oblivious to his true heart. In my previous life, I chose a different path, yet it brought me no happiness. So, why should I continue to struggle? Whether the eldest son of the Du family is good or not, or whether the Du family is amiable, I care not. As long as marrying into the Du family grants me the status of the Du matron, ensuring my livelihood and dignity, that is the tangible benefit I can grasp. Therefore, mother, I am willing to marry. Now, as the new bride enters the household, my sister-in-law scowls, and my mother-in-law and father-in-law impose their authority upon me. Mother, I am willing to marry. Now, as the new bride enters the household, my sister-in-law scowls, and my mother-in-law and father-in-law impose their authority upon me. Yet they are unaware that such trivialities pale in comparison to my past life, filled with endless toil in the fields, caring for silkworms, and endless embroidery.
Indeed.
Any notions of romance dissipate when faced with the reality of hard labor. Thus, when my mother-in-law made her remarks, I merely responded softly. Chiener did not mean ill. Moreover, one has a younger sister too. Seeing Chiener and my sister share similar temperaments brings her joy. This is a fabrication. My younger sister is the most obedient and sensible, shedding tears as I departed for marriage. Yet, those who heard my response could only whisper amongst themselves, noting how the minister's household has acquired a sensible and understanding daughter-in-law, while the second young lady's arrogance stood in stark contrast, leaving much to be desired. My mother-in-law, evidently taken aback by the outcome, momentarily lost her smile, her expression turning cold and stern. If that is the case, let us proceed with the ceremony. If Wolin is frail and my daughter-in-law is so understanding, then using a substitute item should not be of concern. I, of course, am unconcerned. I am marrying into the status of the due matron, not her son. It matters not if it is merely a rooster or even a dog. I shall bow. I gracefully knelt, as the officiant proclaimed loudly, "First bow to heaven and earth." The rooster flapped its wings beside me. Second bow to the high hall. The crowd began to murmur. Couple bow to each other.
Wait!
Someone suddenly burst forth from the throng, raising their voice. The ceremony was interrupted, and before me stood only a red cloth, obscuring my view, yet I recognized that voice all too well. I clenched my fists and stood up, directing my gaze towards that direction. General Hor? Others around me were equally astonished. The second son of the Hor family has returned triumphantly from battle, having been honored as the unbeaten general. Today marks his grand return. What brings him here? Could it be a banquet hosted by the Du family? Yet the Du family hardly values this son and daughter-in-law, let alone this marriage, so how could they possibly invite him? However, given Hua Yan's current glory, my mother-in-law and father-in-law were obliged to greet him warmly. General Hua, it is an honor to have you here. Why was there no early notice? Please, take a seat and enjoy a cup of wedding wine. Yet, Hua Yan, clearly flustered, blurted out without thought, I did not come to drink wedding wine. His tone was harsh, causing my mother-in-law and father-in-law to visibly falter. Meanwhile, Hua Yan, disheveled and imposing, stood firmly, glaring at me. The crowd turned to follow his gaze. His tone was harsh, causing my mother-in-law and father-in-law to visibly falter. Meanwhile, Hua Yan, disheveled and imposing, stood firmly, glaring at me. The crowd turned to follow his gaze. Why then did Hua Yan burst in during my wedding ceremony, staring at me in front of so many people? Regardless of how others perceive this, how shall I navigate my life in the Du family now? I steadied my nerves, yet instinctively took a step back. However, in the next moment, a hand steadied my waist, the faint scent of medicinal herbs wafting around me. I turned in astonishment. Beneath the red veil, I could only see the figure clad in wedding attire and hear their cool, weak voice. General Hua is here for my younger sister, is he not? However, I could only see the figure clad in wedding attire and hear their cool, weak voice. General Hua is here for my younger sister, is he not? However, perhaps it would be best to wait for an announcement and have the general sit for a cup of wedding wine? Although the engagement between Hua Yan and Du Qianna had not been publicly declared, both families were well aware of it. Thus, this statement held merit, providing Hua Yan with the best excuse. Yet upon seeing the hand that was wrapped around my waist, Hua Yan's fury only intensified. I did not come to, husband. I suddenly called out, my figure swaying slightly, as though weary, leaning into the embrace of the person beside me. The individual beside me stiffened for a moment, but ultimately supported me. Such behavior from newlyweds appeared affectionate. It was akin to a bucket of cold water splashed over Hua Yan, dousing his anger completely. Wolin, upon seeing his eldest son, my mother-in-law's demeanor shifted from joy to aloofness. What brings you here? Aren't you unwell? The one holding me coughed a couple of times, showing no warmth towards his mother, and replied coolly, It is my wedding day. As husband and wife, even if I have only a breath left, I should still perform the ceremony with my bride. After saying this, he looked up toward Hua Yan and added, My sister has arrived. As his words fell, Du Qianna indeed appeared, her previous disdain for me entirely vanished, replaced by a radiant smile. General, what brings you here? Hua Yan, momentarily dazed by a surge of emotion, Du Qian'er indeed appeared, her previous disdain for me entirely vanished, replaced by a radiant smile. General, what brings you here? Hua Yan, momentarily dazed by a surge of emotion. Having achieved success and poised to marry the daughter of a minister, he found himself in a situation where a public outburst at this wedding could ruin everything. Having achieved success and poised to marry the daughter of a minister, he found himself in a situation where a public outburst at this wedding could ruin everything. The marriage would be called off, his father would be disappointed, and he would face censure. He would once again become the Huo Yan of the past. Each word laden with difficulty. I have come to seek Miss Du. I arrived in haste, and did not bring a wedding gift. I truly apologize to Master Du, and Madame Du. My apologies. The answer was clear. It was not worth it. Following this interlude, I truly apologize to Master Du, and Madame Du. My apologies. The answer was clear. It was not worth it. Following this interlude, the rooster intended to shame me was removed. At the other end of the red silk, another person held it, mirroring my grip. Hua Yan sat among the male guests, observing the scene. Finally, couple bowed to each other. In a daze, he recalled the shy girl from his past life, who wore no lavish wedding garments, adorned only with a red flower as she wed him. He had promised her the grandest of weddings. The sound resonated loudly, and his vision blurred with tears. Enter the bridal chamber. Thus, this wedding unfolded, fraught with surprises yet ultimately safe and sound. Once the guests had dispersed, Du Roland stepped into the bridal chamber and dismissed the attendants. The room was illuminated by flickering red candles, enveloped in silence. He lifted my red veil,
revealing a strikingly pale visage.
Even clad in festive attire, he exuded little vitality, confirming the rumors that the eldest son of the Du family was indeed a frail invalid. For you wed me against your will. You have miscalculated. My frail constitution cannot provide what you desire. In fact, I am not well regarded in this household, and your marriage to me will only reflect that. Thus, if you remain compliant and stay in this eastern courtyard, I might ensure your safety. However, and your marriage to me will only reflect that. Thus, if you remain compliant and stay in this eastern courtyard, I might ensure your safety. However, should you aspire for more and seek to cling to others, do not blame me for the consequences. His eyes were filled with weariness, not directed at me. I shall grant you a letter of divorce and a sum of gold. You need not uphold any vows of fidelity nor trouble me. Having said that, I shall grant you a letter of divorce and a sum of gold. You need not uphold any vows of fidelity nor trouble me. Having said that, he did not spare me another glance and strode toward the door. I called out, "Where is my husband going?" He halted, turned back to me, his brow furrowed. Clearly, he detested the title husband, yet he could not refute it, for we had indeed exchanged vows. Thus, he merely replied, "To the study." He had no intention of sharing the bed with me, but as he attempted to leave, I grasped him and pulled him back. How could he leave? On the wedding night, if the groom were to depart, I would become a laughingstock by morning. My status and identity were at stake, and I would not allow it. We shall consummate our marriage. The sedan has arrived, and the vows have been exchanged. How can my husband claim I married against my will? He paused, then let out a self-deprecating laugh. Who would willingly marry someone as sickly as I?
Me?
I replied without hesitation, shedding my hairpin and skirt before his astonished gaze. A wealthy husband, albeit deceased, was an opportunity one welcomed with open arms. Thus, I unfastened the ties of Du Roland's garments and pressed my lips against his. Husband. A wealthy husband, albeit deceased, was an opportunity one welcomed with open arms. Thus, I unfastened the ties of Du Roland's garments and pressed my lips against his. Husband. And a midwife beside my mother-in-law peered in with wide eyes. In the next moment, she dropped the basin of water and rushed to the bedside. Young master?
Du Riolin.
And a midwife beside my mother-in-law peered in with wide eyes. In the next moment, she dropped the basin of water and rushed to the bedside. Young master?
Du Riolin.
His neck marked with splotches of red, lay under the covers with a sullen expression, resembling a defiled maiden, ignoring the midwife's astonished gaze. He gritted his teeth. Such petty behavior is a disgrace to our dignity. It is unworthy of a gentleman. Peiwan Yu cough, cough, cough. The servants were thrown into a flurry. I adjusted my collar. How absurd. I am a woman, not a petty person, and certainly not a gentleman. What is wrong with sharing a chamber with my husband on our wedding night? It is only natural. Du Rollin, evidently annoyed, tossed a handkerchief at the midwife and barked. She had been sent by my mother-in-law to witness the spectacle. With Du Rollin being an invalid and me, a daughter-in-law not favored by her. She had been sent by my mother-in-law to witness the spectacle. With Du Rollin being an invalid and me, a daughter-in-law not favored by her. It was a situation ripe for ridicule. But who could have anticipated that the midwife would glance at me, then at Du Rollin's pale face, and the evident marks of red on his neck? Du Rollin's expression soured further. Get out. The midwife and the others scurried away. After Du Rollin's illness, he insisted on doing it himself. If a servant inadvertently intruded, they would surely be met with his ire. They were all aware of this.
Indeed.
He insisted on doing it himself. If a servant inadvertently intruded, they would surely be met with his ire. They were all aware of this.
Indeed.
As the crowd dispersed, Du Rollin, in a huff, flung the covers aside. Yet, when he reached for his robe, his hand trembled slightly. In the next moment, a hand naturally extended toward him, offering his clothes. He glared at me fiercely. I do not require your charity. Leave me be. He snatched his garments away forcefully. A hand naturally extended toward him, offering his clothes. He glared at me fiercely. I do not require your charity. Leave me be. He snatched his garments away forcefully. But as soon as he donned his undergarments, he was drenched in sweat. Meanwhile, I stood immobile, my eyes fixed on him. His pride and dignity were at war, causing him to dress more chaotically. After several failed attempts, he struck the bed in frustration and collapsed back, his hand covering his eyes. His breaths, whether shallow or deep. A broken man. Do you not find your lie absurd? I was perplexed. How can you be a broken man? Was last night not splendid? A broken man. Do you not find your lie absurd? I was perplexed. How can you be a broken man? Was last night not splendid? Mentioning the previous night seemed to ignite something within him. He suddenly opened his eyes wide, staring at me. You are so reckless. Feeling triumphant, you will have plenty of days to not forgive me in the future. I certainly did not wish for our days ahead to be bland and uneventful. Feeling triumphant, you will have plenty of days to not forgive me in the future. I certainly did not wish for our days ahead to be bland and uneventful. He comprehended my implication, his face flushing with disbelief. Shameless. How curious, to feel shame after having shared a chamber. Hadn't we seen everything of each other the night before? Du Rollin was quite stubborn, believing he had little time left. He naturally cared for nothing. His parents shared the same sentiment. Thus, when he accompanied me to pay respects to them, they showed me no deference. It began with his father. Rollin is weak. Now that you are married, you must serve him well and with utmost dedication. Du Rollin scoffed. I am ill, not disabled. What is there to serve? His mother added. It would be best if you could bear a grandson. Do not be a hen that cannot lay eggs, or you will be the subject of ridicule. Can you really expect to give birth to a grandson before Du wedding? Would you find that amusing? Then Du Chiener, indignant, interjected, Brother, what do you mean by that? Can you really expect to give birth to a grandson before Du wedding? Would you find that amusing? Then Du Chiener, indignant, interjected, Brother, what do you mean by that? How can you speak to our parents in such a manner? And you? She pointed at me. If you cannot even manage your husband, what use are you? Shouting like that?
Bang!
The intoxicated Du Ruwedding, returning from a night of revelry, slammed his hand on the table and shouted, Du Rollin. Shouting like that?
Bang!
The intoxicated Du Ruwedding, returning from a night of revelry, slammed his hand on the table and shouted, Du Rollin. Today I will teach you a lesson. Du Rollin cast a disdainful glance at him, scoffing, What are you even worth to speak to me?
Rollin.
His mother. Today I will teach you a lesson. Du Rollin cast a disdainful glance at him, scoffing, What are you even worth to speak to me?
Rollin.
His mother, who had previously refrained from scolding him, immediately changed her tone when he spoke of her younger son, admonishing, How can you speak to your brother like that? This family will rely on your brother in the future. She assumed it was a given, that Du Rollin would soon depart this world. Would it not fall upon your brother to care for a widow? Du Ruoding shouted in response. I do not want that. The Du family belongs to me. Would it not fall upon your brother to care for a widow? Du Ruoding shouted in response. I do not want that. The Du family belongs to me. I do not want to care for an invalid and a widow. His words were too blunt, and this was certainly not the first time he had spoken so. It is no wonder that Du Wolin would treat them with such disdain, standing in stark contrast to his amiable demeanor when we met last night. I chuckled softly. He is far from being truly short-lived. As a younger brother, he is certainly not on the brink of death. As his younger brother, to curse your elder like this could lead to dire consequences should word of it spread, especially if you wish to pursue a career in public service. Du Qian'er, who harbors the deepest disdain for me, was poised to retort, but I turned my gaze towards her. Dear sister-in-law, you are soon to be wed. If your rebellious words against your elder brother were to become known, it is not beyond reason that your marriage prospects may be called into question. What nonsense are you spouting? Brother who would never disdain me. I raised my eyes to meet those of my parents-in-law. My husband's words were indeed unguarded, driven by the frustrations of prolonged illness, and not spoken with intent. The new bride, offer my apologies to you, esteemed parents. However, I deftly shifted the conversation, elaborating, it is well known that in our dynasty, must apologize on his behalf. However, I shifted my tone, gradually continuing, it is worth noting that our dynasty has always upheld the principle of primogeniture, and only in their absence does it descend to the second son. Forgive my candor, but the words of my mother-in-law were rather inappropriate, and only in their absence does the second son assume the family's duties. Forgive me for my frankness, but what you just said, mother, was rather inappropriate and must not be repeated. Wouldn't you agree, father? This path of governance is fraught with peril, and attaining such a position requires utmost caution. A single misstep could lead to relentless troubles from political adversaries. My father-in-law undoubtedly grasped the implications of my words, narrowing his eyes at me for a moment. I maintained my composure, feigning innocence, as if nothing had transpired. My mother-in-law could not contain herself, pointing an accusatory finger at me. You are indeed correct. He gestured toward Du Qian'er and Du Ruoding. Should you continue to speak so indiscreetly, a period of confinement will surely follow. Yet, he gestured towards Du Qian'er and Du Ruoding. Should your tongues run wild once more, you shall find yourselves confined to your chambers. Yet, he did not even cast a glance at me or Du Wolin as he departed, offering merely a dismissive remark. As for you two,
Take care.
the head of the family, a man of high standing, cannot abide being manipulated or threatened. Du Wolin, as the unfilial eldest son, may have been tolerated for his retorts. Their favor cannot translate into wealth or power. On the contrary, it would only serve to stifle me endlessly. Thus, why should I endure? It only results in an unending stream of grievances. Thus, why should I endure? I have not forgotten my purpose for marrying into this family. Fortunately, she assessed Du Wolin's condition, finding him unharmed, even appearing somewhat more vibrant than before. Then, she took my hand and smiled. I said he is a good child, even appearing somewhat more vibrant than before. Then she grasped my hand with a smile. I always said he was a good child. He seems remarkably well-suited. Finally, it is high time you impart some wisdom on her regarding the affairs of the inner quarters. Her words, though delicately phrased, were unmistakably clear to any discerning ear. It is high time you began instructing her on the matters of the household. The statement was veiled, yet any discerning individual would understand its true meaning. There was no reason to wait for her mother-in-law to teach her. The Prime Minister's wife was subtly admonishing my mother-in-law not to show favoritism, insisting that the authority over household matters be duly bestowed. At her words, my mother-in-law's smile appeared strained as she cast a heavy glance in my direction. My mother-in-law's smile appeared forced, casting a heavy glance in my direction. The old minister has one son, stationed far in the southwest, holding a significant position, and the couple must surely miss him. To put it plainly, the old minister's attentiveness to the Du family is not merely due to Du Shongshu, his student, but rather for Du Rolin, whom he has watched grow, akin to a grandson. This was particularly evident after Du Rolin's unfortunate incident in the water. Even after the couple has deliberately neglected Du Rolin, the Prime Minister's wife has intervened. If Rolin truly possesses a short-lived fate, he is still your child. The minister's wife had previously urged them. If Woolen truly has a fate of early demise, he is still your child. How can you be so short-sighted? Favoring the younger son while neglecting him? My mother-in-law's response at that time was impeccably crafted. Yueling is mistaken. This child has been provided for just as Ruwedding has. When have my husband and I ever neglected him? The minister's wife was left speechless. Indeed, their provisions may have been equal, but there are intangible differences that cannot be overlooked. For instance, my mother-in-law would often express her frustration. The ordeal of bringing him into this world was arduous. Yet who could have foreseen that mere years later, he would become such a frail creature? Only the Prime Minister's slight favor for talent remains. Otherwise, his self-destructive demeanor is enough to vex me.
She scoffed.
And to think I am accused of favoritism? My eldest son is incapacitated. And yet you accuse me of favoritism? With my eldest son incapacitated, should I not diligently guide my second son? Or must we live a life clinging to a corpse? It is her excessive favoritism that has brought the Prime Minister's wife here. This was her promise to me when she sought my hand, a subtle defense of Du Ruolan, a token of her protection over Du Ruolan. However, regardless of the reasons, I have secured the authority to manage the household. In the courtyard, as I busied myself with the abacus and accounts, Du Ruolan's smile bore a hint of mockery. Is this not your true intention for marrying into the family? I paused momentarily, meeting his gaze with feigned innocence. What is it that you speak of, dear husband? I do not comprehend. Yet, internally, I felt a thrill. The Du family is indeed affluent, and though those outside may look down upon me, they must still show me due respect. As for my mother-in-law, she has certainly attempted to undermine me. But do not forget, my mother is the daughter of a wealthy merchant, and in matters of accounting, can she truly outmaneuver me? Time and again, I have triumphed over her obstacles. The only one I cannot directly confront is Du Ruwedding, my younger brother-in-law, who, along with Du Qianna's financial dealings are limited to the purchase of jewelry and clothing. In contrast, Du Ruwedding's expenses are far greater, such as his indulgence in horse polo today and dining at taverns tomorrow, easily amounting to over 100 taels. Moreover, he is spoiled by my mother-in-law, showing no restraint, and as a newcomer, I cannot impose too strictly. Thus, more often than not, he has had his way. But that is where it ends. I have finally achieved my desires. While I may not have secured my husband's affection, I have attained tangible wealth and power. Du Ruolan is indeed a prodigy. He sees everything clearly. He simply finds it tiresome to expose the truth. At this moment, he sits nearby, harboring a small sense of revenge for my insistence on compliance during our wedding night. Enjoy your happiness while you can, in 3 to 5 years. Why 3 to 5 years? I inquired. A sly smile curled upon Du Ruolan's pale, handsome face. Because in 3 to 5 years, I shall perish. And you will have no children. My mother will undoubtedly be impatient to transfer all family assets to her younger son. Otherwise, do you think she would so readily bestow the authority of the household upon you? With a clatter, a bead from the abacus fell to the floor. His voice barely audible. Perhaps it may not even take 3 to 5 years. My eyes flickered, and I shot to my feet. Du Ruolan assumes that I will shower him with care and tread lightly around him, at least not pressuring him as I had before, exploiting his frailty. In truth, he is partially correct. I have indeed shown him more kindness, at the very least seeking out numerous doctors for him, but his ailment is an old affliction. At the very least arranging for him to see numerous physicians, but the root of his ailment was long established, and even the imperial doctors were at a loss. Instead, swiftly dressing him and prompting him to rise, ready for another day of managing accounts and generating revenue. Everything seems unchanged. I quickly mastered all affairs of the Du household, while Du Ruwedding continued his daily outings with his friends. When asked why he was not preparing for the imperial examination, he waved dismissively. With my intellect, what could I possibly fail to pass? Even if I do not succeed, I still have my father. I can continue to live well, not to mention that the Du family will ultimately be mine. Meanwhile, Du Qianner busied herself with her romance with Huyen. On several occasions, I encountered the two of them in the backyard. Huyen often seemed on the verge of speaking whenever I was present, yet he remained mute, hindered by Du Qiannu's presence. He had realized his long-held ambition. In this life, he acted with restraint, benefiting from the support of the Hor family. Hua Yan often seemed on the verge of uttering something, yet remained silent due to the presence of Du Qianu. He had, in a sense, fulfilled his long-cherished wish. In this life, he acted with greater restraint, buoyed by the support of the Hor family, and now sailed smoothly through life. In the future, an alliance with the Du family could only serve to enhance his position. I held no particular thoughts on the matter, as my elder sister might aid her in sabotaging my prospects. Pei Wan, I advise you to cease your scheming against me. If mother finds out, you will not have a pleasant outcome. She clamored for a generous dowry, admonishing me, the steward of the household, not to be stingy. I sighed and refrained from further comment. As for my mother-in-law, she remained notably silent. At the very least, we maintained a facade of tranquility. You shall face dire consequences. She clamored for a generous dowry, insisting that I, as the steward of finances, should not be miserly. I sighed and refrained from further comment. As for my mother-in-law, she remained notably quiet. At least we managed to maintain a semblance of peace on the surface. Du Wolin found himself at an impasse. Thus, our time together was rather pleasant. I even took care to dress him warmly and selected his medicines with great care. There was a moment when he coughed blood. Aside from coercing him to yield every fortnight, our interactions were relatively pleasant, as I still took care to dress him warmly. Even the medicinal concoctions I prepared were meticulously selected. There was an instance when he coughed up blood. It was the first time I witnessed Du Wolin in such a state, his face pale and his breath faint, as if death were imminent. In my anxiety, I summoned countless physicians, but as I busied myself, he merely observed and said, "Pei Wan, let it be." I froze, turning to him. Blood still stained his lips as he offered a rare, self-deprecating smile. "Let it be, just as I said before, after I pass, in the first shelf of the study. There is a small box containing a letter of divorce and enough silver to secure your future. Do not feel bound to honor my memory. If you wish to remarry, do so. And do not contest with my mother. In my absence, you would be but an outsider, and you cannot prevail, thus." He exhaled deeply. "Take the silver and leave." It is often said that a dying person's words are benevolent. Even at such a time, Du Wolin and I, a pair of ill-fated lovers, exchanged bittersweet words. Yet I did not respond in kind. Instead, I stepped forward, grasping his collar, and with unwavering resolve, I declared, "You shall not die."
Du Riolin.
I refuse to accept your death. At least not now. I ought to be a heartless person. If he were to die, I sought countless doctors for him, yet he remained in a deep, unyielding slumber. Everyone proclaimed that his situation was beyond remedy. I sought numerous physicians for him, yet he remained in a deep coma, and the consensus was that he was beyond saving. The Du family began preparations for his funeral. I became the pitiable new bride in others' eyes, destined to become a widow merely half a year after marriage. She mentioned that my sister had found a suitable suitor, and once an auspicious date was determined, she would marry. She expressed her own contentment, stating that my father's health was well. She said, "Awan, if it truly comes to that, return home." She hesitated, some words left unspoken. "And of my father's good health." She said, "Awan, should it come to that, return home." She hesitated, some words unuttered. My younger sister's eyes glistened with unshed tears. "Is there truly nothing amiss at home?" My mother clasped my hand back, affirming, "Silly girl, with me here, how could anything go awry? Do not forget, I have endured to this point not as a weakling to be trifled with. Thus, as long as I am here, all shall be well." As the visitors departed, "I have survived to this point not as a soft persimmon to be squeezed at will. So long as I am here, there shall be no trouble." Eventually, everyone departed, leaving behind Du Wolin, who had been in a coma for months, his breath shallow and barely perceptible. A gust of wind swept through. A white dove alighted beside me. I raised my hand to place it in the candlelight, watching intently as the words inscribed, "As long as you utter a single yes, I shall aid you in faking your death to escape," were consumed by the flame.
Bang.
At that moment, the door swung open. My mother-in-law's attendant towered over me. "The First Lady requests your presence." The fragile peace I had worked so hard to maintain was about to shatter. As I entered the main hall, "You are requested this way." The fragile peace I had strived to maintain was about to shatter. As I entered the main hall, a teacup came crashing down. I offered no rebuttal and knelt as commanded. Lifting my gaze revealed an assembly of familiar faces. My father-in-law occupied the main seat. Du Chiener wore a smirk of delight. Upon lifting my gaze, I noted that all the key players were present. My father-in-law occupied the main seat. Du Chiener wore a smug expression. I do not comprehend what transgression I, as a daughter-in-law, have committed to incite such wrath from my esteemed parents-in-law. You have the audacity to ask. My mother-in-law scoffed. I am unaware of what transgression I, as a daughter-in-law, have committed to evoke such wrath from my elders. How dare you even ask? My mother-in-law sneered. My father-in-law interjected. I ask you, as the one managing the household accounts, did you provide Ruweding with the silver he requested? I replied honestly, whatever my brother-in-law requested, I naturally provided. Then, do you have any idea what he did with the money you gave him? My father-in-law's tone shifted dramatically. It was only then that I noticed Du Ruweding bore visible signs of having been beaten, his face marked with bruises. I was perplexed. As for my brother-in-law's personal matters, how could I, as his sister-in-law, dare to pry? Indeed, if it were a matter of mere monthly allowances, it would be inappropriate to inquire further. But you provided him with a sum of 10,000 taels. Shouldn't you question that? I cannot fathom how you have bewitched the Chancellor's wife into meddling in our household affairs, to the extent of wresting control of the family finances from me. I cannot fathom how you have bewitched the Prime Minister's wife into meddling in our family affairs, even usurping the management of the household, lest others accuse me of favoritism towards my younger son. But I never anticipated that you would be so inept. Your inability to manage the accounts is one thing. I refrained from further inquiry to avoid being accused of favoritism towards my younger son. But I never anticipated that you would prove so incompetent. Not only can you not manage the accounts, but you have also allowed Ruweding to fall into gambling. How can the Du family tolerate you? I said it before. A merchant's daughter is good for nothing but filthy schemes. My parents insisted on indulging you, and now we have a major crisis. Du Chieno added fuel to the fire. Even if your heart is cold, you should not lead him astray. This is all happening just before the imperial examination. At the mention of the examination, my elder brother is on the brink of death, and who doesn't know that father has only this one son left? He is the one who will bear the family responsibilities in the future. Even if you are cruel-hearted, you should not lead him down the wrong path. And the spring examination is upon us. The mention of the examination darkened my father-in-law's expression further as he glared at Du Ruweding. You wretched child. Du Ruweding, however, showed no remorse and unhesitatingly pointed at me. Father, this is not my fault. She gives me everything I ask for. I have heard it referred to as nurturing to death. All dirty tricks to vie for family fortune. Clearly, she desires our wealth. That is why she intentionally led me to develop a gambling addiction. Each word served to condemn me. Ultimately, my mother-in-law delivered the final blow. Truly, this family is unworthy of respect. Just yesterday, the outside concubine of her father, an official, came knocking, causing a ruckus. And she even brought along a nearly 8-year-old son. What does my mother-in-law mean by that? I was taken aback, my expression finally shifting. She smirked, evidently pleased with my reaction. Are you unaware? Your mother, consumed by jealousy. Who knows if you harbor resentment for being wed to a sickly man? I countered. I have never harbored resentment, nor have I caused my husband any harm. Your moral failings are inherited. Now it seems that Du Roland's continued slumber may very well be your doing. Who knows if you harbor resentment for marrying a sickly man? I retorted, I have never harbored resentment, nor have I caused my husband any harm. If Roland remains unresponsive, who can say? The mother-in-law chuckled lightly. Your malice is intolerable in our household. Here, take this divorce letter and return whence you came. Yet, I gazed at these individuals and queried, my husband remains unconscious. Begone. Depart at once. How amusing. Given Du Roland's disdain for this fellow, drew a piece of paper from his waist and tossed it at my feet. Leave. Begone. How amusing. Given Du Roland's disdain for this scoundrel. The truth was soon revealed to all. Behind me, a hoarse, deep voice resonated. On my behalf? How could you go about dying for me? The crowd turned in astonishment, exclaiming, Roland. Du Wolin, supported by another, approached with a face paler than usual, exacerbated by his evident displeasure. He came to stand behind me.
What?
The crowd turned in shock, exclaiming, Wolin. He was being supported by others, his originally pale face now further marred by his evident distress. He approached me, his demeanor grave. I have arrived late, and allowed you to suffer. I remained still. He called, Pei Wang? Upon looking again, he had halted, meeting my tear-stained eyes. It matters not. As long as my husband is well, a Wang bears no grievances. His lips quivered, as if profoundly moved. Meanwhile, I, with tears welling, addressed the others earlier. Peiwan? Upon seeing me, he halted abruptly, taken aback by the redness around my eyes. It is of no consequence. As long as my husband is well. Awan is not aggrieved. His lips trembled, evidently moved, while I, with tears welling, turned to address the others. Just now, everyone pointed out my faults, indicating that as a daughter-in-law, I have indeed fallen short, and I acknowledge this. However, allow me to pose a question. May I inquire, mother-in-law? When my younger brother came to request funds, I had previously remarked that the sum was too substantial to dispense lightly, yet he caused a ruckus in the inner quarters, claiming it was your consent. Is that veracity? The mother-in-law vehemently denied. That is certainly false. I continued, then why do I find myself having to seek your verification? Why does mother-in-law consistently refuse to meet? She opened her mouth, adamantly asserting, at my age, I naturally delegate authority to you. If I were to intervene in everything, when have you ever posed a question to me? I responded, since my entry into this household, I have meticulously recorded my husband's monthly health reports for you to review.
I have.
He immediately retorted with indignation. How dare you slander me in front of everyone? When did I ever see you ask? I responded. Or is it that my father-in-law has never bothered to look? My father-in-law. He certainly would not concede. I have indeed reviewed them. Otherwise, how could he admit to neglecting his own son? Yet if he had reviewed them, why was this situation now unfolding? My father-in-law stammered. Perhaps I overlooked them. You have never even looked? My father-in-law. He certainly could not admit. I have indeed looked. How could he confess to being indifferent to his own son's well-being, allowing him to languish? Yet if he had looked, why was the current situation unfolding? My father-in-law stammered. Perhaps I overlooked it. I chimed in, indeed. Perhaps you did overlook it? Once is an oversight, but my younger brother has sought funds over 10 times, and I have noted this on multiple occasions. Did you overlook all of those? My father-in-law. Du Wolin scoffed coldly. At this juncture, what was still unclear? He seemed too weary to argue further. His heart evidently grown cold, simply stating, if my parents truly favor my younger brother, taking advantage of my illness to oppress my wife, then today I shall send for the elders of the clan to witness and have me expelled from the family tree, left to my own devices. Preposterous. Family shame must not be aired. You seek to disgrace me. My father-in-law bellowed in rage.
Du Ruolin, et quoi les fiers? Retorted.
Is it not disgraceful for my parents to bully the wife of the eldest son in their pursuit of inheritance for the younger son? Merely aware that his elder brother and parents had finally torn apart, and thus he spoke the unvarnished truth. Unbeknownst to him, his words plunged the room into silence. Breaking this silence was a servant from my maternal family, rushing in to report, Miss, you must return home at once. Something has happened to the master. A profound silence enveloped the room. Breaking the silence was a frantic servant from my family, rushing in with alarming news. Miss, you must return home at once. The master is in trouble. What trouble, you ask? It seemed that yesterday, his concubine had come to flaunt her child, only to be driven away by my mother for unreasonable complaints. That very night, my father and mother had a fierce quarrel, revolving around his desire to take a concubine, recognizing his son, or else he would divorce her. The uproar from the concubine had tarnished his long-held reputation. Yet, my mother merely scoffed. She would report him to the authorities. She had committed no transgressions worthy of the 7 reasons for divorce. My father claimed she was jealous, but the truth was, he had chosen to feign deep affection and rejected the idea of a concubine himself. As my father had previously claimed to his colleagues that as long as he had her, he cared not for sons. The fault did not lie with her. She had all the time in the world to wait. But to vacate her position for another?
Dream on.
My father, in a fit of rage, left home, presumably to seek out the concubine. Unbeknownst to him, he stumbled upon her in the act of infidelity, and now, the paternity of the child was in question. In a moment of blind fury, he collapsed from a stroke. The concubine and her paramour, fearing for their lives, fled into the night with the child. By the time anyone discovered my father, he could barely utter a word. My mother was quite satisfied. I merely sought to pierce his heart. I did not expect him to be so fragile. Well, it is for the best. His paralysis saves me from the headache of dealing with him.
Awan.
This is the fate of a faithless man. By the way, did your mother-in-law gain any ground? Indeed, everything was part of my meticulous plan. Indeed, all of this was part of my plan. I knew Du Rollin would awaken today. I was aware that the matriarch had sent the concubine to create a ruckus. However, it deviated from the mother-in-law's expectations. My brother was not merely acting in a charade. His intentions were genuine. Now, her plans lay in tatters. The younger brother was not merely putting on a show. He was indeed serious. Now, her plans had unraveled, and she had lost both people and wealth. On the journey back, Du Rollin was particularly silent. It was not until nightfall that he spoke to me. Wang, I wished to participate in this year's imperial examination. I originally thought that if I were to fend for myself, they would be satisfied. But I did not anticipate that before my demise could grant you a divorce, they would be so impatient to harm you. He speaks the truth. My inadequacy emboldens them. He was not inherently malicious, merely sharpened by prolonged illness. Yet in his heart, he ultimately wished not to burden me. Hence, he declared, I will strive to live longer at the very least, to ensure you are well taken care of. Look, he is so easily deceived, truly believing that without him, I would suffer immensely. I smiled, brushing the corners of my eyes as I lay in his embrace, responding, he truly believes that without him, I would suffer greatly. I smiled, brushing away the corners of my eyes, and nestled in his embrace, replying, who, recognizing his talent, was delighted to hear this news and was eager to impart his wisdom. Thus, these days, he was quite busy, concerned that in his absence, he personally sought out the old chancellor, who, recognizing his talent, was delighted to hear the news. He could hardly contain his eagerness to impart his wisdom. Thus, Du Ruoding was also participating in this examination. Secondly, the marriage of Du Qian and Huiyan was approaching. As the eldest daughter-in-law, the matriarch was currently preoccupied and had no time to harass me. First, Du Ruoding was also participating in this examination. Second, the marriage arrangements for Du Qianer and Huiyan had reached a critical point. As the eldest daughter-in-law, I naturally had to oversee the preparations. While I could afford to be less attentive to Du Qian's wedding, I could not afford to neglect Du Rollin's medicine. It would be her daughter's wedding that would be ruined. Simultaneously, I had little time to engage in a battle of wits with her, as I had my own pressing matters. While I could afford to be less invested in Du Qianer's wedding, I could not afford to delegate the care of Du Rollin's medicine to anyone else, especially since I had another significant matter to prepare for. My younger sister, with a loving husband and harmonious relations with her in-laws. Hence, when our mother sought my opinion, I did not express any dissent. However, on the day of her wedding, my sister gazed at the two sets of jade headpieces in confusion and asked, aren't these meant for both sister and me? Why must I receive sisters as well? I shook my head and replied, these are reserved for obedient children. Sister is disobedient, thus, she cannot have them. At that time I was too young, believing that being with the one I loved was sufficient, neglecting all else. Yet I forgot that hearts can easily change, and it is a folly to assume otherwise. Thus, I was unworthy of possessing that headpiece and rightfully bore the consequences. On my way back, I encountered the obstructive Huiyan. It had been quite some time since we last met. He appeared somewhat haggard, as if he had been drinking. Fortunately, no one was around, and I noticed his calm demeanor as he questioned, what is the meaning of this, brother-in-law? He was on the verge of marrying Du Qianer. It had been quite some time since we last met. He appeared somewhat haggard, as if he had been drinking. Fortunately, no one was around, and I noticed his calm demeanor as he questioned, what is the meaning of this, brother-in-law? He was on the verge of marrying Du Qianer. Why has the princess not chosen me?
Mest disse til formaren du kianar.
He rambled on. Why has it come to this?
Why?
In this life, I did not choose you. Why is it that I still lack a brilliant younger brother? He could forsake me, yet still expect me to be a concubine? Did he genuinely believe that I, Pei Wan, could be blind to such a fate twice?
Huayan.
Your arrogance blinds you, yet you forget that there are always greater talents beyond your own. Those with true ability shine brightly wherever they go, independent of your presence. I am truly grateful that heaven has granted me a chance to start anew. Otherwise, my child and I would have only endured a life of hardship with you. Child? What child? Hua Yan's intoxication vanished instantly as he turned to me with shock. I lowered the curtain and retorted mockingly. I am truly grateful that heaven has granted me a chance to start anew. Otherwise, my child and I would have only endured a life of hardship with you. Child? What child? Hua Yan's intoxication vanished instantly as he turned to me with shock. I lowered the curtain and retorted mockingly. Understanding virtuous wife. Du Qian'er was evidently not that. Consequently, on their return visit, their expressions were already troubling. Not to mention, a year later, when Du Qian'er adamantly refused to allow Hui Yan to take a concubine, he resorted to keeping a mistress and staged various escapades in brothels. Understanding virtuous wife. Du Qian'er was evidently not that. Consequently, on their return visit, their expressions were already troubling. Not to mention, a year later, on the day the results were announced, we were overwhelmed with joy, while my father-in-law appeared contemplative and my mother-in-law's countenance darkened significantly, turning his life into a series of farcical events. However, such matters were of no concern to me, for Du Ruolin had excelled in her studies, achieving first place. Yet it was all in vain. He could not break the habit. My mother-in-law had attempted to intervene, but whenever she did, Du Ruo Ting would shout, "Are you favoring Du Ruolin? You only shift your allegiance when I fail. Now, father favors him, and you do too." My mother-in-law was left speechless. Du Ruo Ting, emboldened by his indulgence, even encountered Huyen at a brothel, where both lamented their perceived lack of recognition and formed an unexpected bond, becoming confidants. "Are you favoring Du Ruolin? You only shift your allegiance when I fail. Now, father favors him, and you do too." My mother-in-law was left speechless. Du Ruo Ting, emboldened by his indulgence, even encountered Huyen at a brothel, where both lamented their perceived lack of recognition and formed an unexpected bond, becoming confidants. At that time, no one anticipated that these two individuals could conjure such calamity. As Du Ruolin's rise to prominence meant that the old chancellor would naturally support him instead. Now, with Du Ruo Ting embroiled in this debacle, my father-in-law seemed to age a decade overnight. Conversely, Du Ruolin became a favored figure before the emperor. By then, we had been married for 4 years. As Du Ruolin's rise to prominence meant that the old chancellor would naturally support him instead. Now, with Du Ruo Ting embroiled in this debacle, accompanying her was Du Qian'er. This had clearly been premeditated, as they not only came themselves but also brought along clan elders to apply pressure. Yet before they could speak, Du Ruolin took a stack of documents from my side and proclaimed, "You have arrived at just the right moment. I was about to consult our clan elders. Our mother and sister have caused no small number of troubles over the years, disrupting our household." Du Ruolin took a stack of documents from my side and proclaimed, "You have arrived at just the right moment. I was about to consult our clan elders. Our mother and sister have caused no small number of troubles over the years, disrupting our household. But recently they have expressed remorse and wish to voluntarily go to the Buddhist hall for atonement." When did I ever say that?
Du Qian'er schrikt, Du Ruolin.
Du Ruolin distributed the documents. "These are the bribes our mother has accepted in my father's name over the years, all squandered by my younger brother. These detail the scandals caused by my sister and her husband, which, though family matters, nearly resulted in the death of a courtesan due to my brother's lechery." Du Ruolin distributed the documents. "These are the bribes our mother has accepted in my father's name over the years, all squandered by my younger brother. Do you truly believe that our mother and sister's trip to the Buddhist hall is a sincere act of contrition?" As he finished speaking, those who had supported my mother-in-law and Du Qian'er immediately changed their tune. "Indeed. Naturally. I say they should go for a lifetime. As long as they have this intention, it is good. Send them off quickly." What else could they do but avoid bringing shame upon the clan? Whether they wished to go or not was of no consequence. When my mother-in-law and Du Chiener were dragged away, the former remained unwilling. Unfilial child. How dare you treat your birth mother this way? Do not forget. I gave you life. What of your father? How dare you act against me behind his back? You have such nerve. By contrast, Du Chiener had lost her bravado, pleading, Elder brother, I was wrong. I truly was wrong. I won't do it again. Sister-in-law, please speak on my behalf. I was truly wrong. I gave you life. What of your father? How dare you act against me behind his back? You have such nerve. By contrast, Du Chiener had lost her bravado, pleading, this is all due to her accepting bribes in my father's name. As for the gratitude I owe my mother for giving me life. Du Ruo Lin remained unmoved. Father is currently being summoned by the emperor. It seems he cannot protect our mother. It was he who pushed me into the lake. Why did you insist that I remain silent? For all these years, he has done as he pleases. He looked at my mother-in-law. I, too, do not understand why you always favor my younger brother. At the age of 10, and I will consider that repayment of my debt to you. His words were resolute, leaving no room for negotiation. My mother-in-law paused, her eyes wide with disbelief. Du Ruo Lin.
Pei Wan.
May you both meet a wretched end. Her voice faded into the distance until it vanished completely. Du Ruo Lin remained motionless until everyone dispersed. He suddenly asked me, bewildered, Awan, have I made a mistake? The next moment, her eyes wide with disbelief. Du Ruo Lin.
Pei Wan.
May you both meet a wretched end. Her voice faded into the distance until it vanished completely. For all these years, I have held on to this breath just to ensure your safety. If so, that is sufficient. Tears brimmed in my eyes, rendering me speechless. Do not speak nonsense. Do not leave me. Yet, how could one simply declare that life would persist? Du Wolin offered a bitter smile. Awan, do not weep. For all these years, I have held on to this breath just to ensure your safety. If so, that is sufficient. Tears brimmed in my eyes, rendering me speechless. Do not speak nonsense. Do not leave me. Yet, how could one simply declare that life would persist? Du Wolin offered a bitter smile. Awan, do not weep. I merely wish to cry for the unfortunate child within me, mourning the loss of a father before even taking their first breath.
Du Riolin.
Initially prepared to close his eyes, suddenly opened them wide. What did you say? Realizing the gravity of my words, he struggled to raise his hand from my embrace, insisting, put me down. I can still live. I broke into a smile through my tears. He was deceiving himself. Ultimately, Du Wolin survived until the age of 37, a feat deemed miraculous by the physician. The year of his passing, our son was 14, insisting, put me down. I can still live. I broke into a smile through my tears. He was deceiving himself. Ultimately, Du Wolin survived until the age of 37. He ensured that neither his wife nor his estate would be coveted by his kin. In his final moments, he rested against me, finding solace as he queried. He had arranged for the boy to study under a renowned scholar and had secured a title for me, ensuring everything was meticulously organized. Even in death, I shall pose you a different question. What is it? I inquired. He persevered. In the next life, would you still wish to be my wife? I found no tears to shed. In the past, I had feigned tears to spur him to succeed in the imperial examinations. Later, I squeezed out a few drops to grant him more time, wishing to spare our child from a life of an orphaned mother. Now, as all hope faded, I found myself bereft of tears, yet felt a sorrow deeper than any shedding. It was then I understood that even in profound sorrow, one could still muster a smile as I replied, Fool, if not to you, then to whom would I marry? He smiled contentedly, slowly closing his eyes. I found myself bereft of tears, yet felt a sorrow deeper than any shedding. It was then I understood that even in profound sorrow, one could still muster a smile as I replied, Fool, if not to you, then to whom would I marry? He smiled contentedly, slowly closing his eyes. I remain grateful that Du Wolin never asked me whether I loved him, for even I did not know the answer. If blame must be cast, it falls upon my father's notion of love, which was but an illusion, and upon the fact that in my previous life, I encountered Huyen instead of him. One may err repeatedly, yet one cannot afford to stumble into the same pit thrice. With Du Wolin, I dared not gamble, nor did I wish to. It falls upon my father's notion of love, which was but an illusion, and upon the fact that in my previous life, I encountered Huyen instead of him. One may err repeatedly, yet one cannot afford to stumble into the same pit thrice. With Du Wolin, I dared not gamble, nor did I wish to. I was uncertain of my feelings for him, but when he asked if I would marry him again in the next life, I did not hesitate. I would.
Du Riolin.
Should there be a next life, I would willingly marry you once more. The end. Thank you for listening, and until we meet again in the next tale.